So for the arm, we're going to include the clavicle, the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and then we're going to tackle all the wonderful fingers. So with the clavicle, we're going to want it closer to the center of the body, somewhere right around here, because that is where your clavicle really is. Your clavicle acts everything that you do with like a shrug of the shoulders or a slumping of the shoulders. That's all on the clavicle. So we're going to have a clavicle, a shoulder, an elbow, wrist, and all the finger joints. So to do that, we actually want to use the top orthographic view. We'll go to wireframe here, and then you're going to go, we'll select our joint creation tool, and we're going to have to kind of estimate where we think that is going to be. A little hard to tell right here, but we're going to say somewhere right in here. And then we're going to do our shoulder. And then we are going to say that our elbow is right in here. And then we want our wrist to be right about here. And then we're going to create one more joint to kind of follow where this is to give us that orientation that we need for our wrist. We'll just put it about like that. Okay, we'll hit enter. This is going to place it all on the ground right here. So we're going to just hit our W key and we're going to move that up to where it should be in the arm. So I think that should work. Right there. Maybe we can go down just a little bit here so we can get that wrist in there. But it's really important for the arm and the leg that we keep all of these joints on the same plane. It's going to make it a lot easier when we're adding different controls and pull vectors, so we know exactly what plane it is on, and it's just on one of these ZX planes. So, okay, now that we have that, we're going to name these really quick. So this is our left clavicle joint, and we'll pick walk down. I'm just hitting my arrow keys to go down to get to the next joint. And this one is our left shoulder underscore JNT. And then we'll pick walk down to the elbow. Call that left elbow joint. Pick walk down to the wrist. Left wrist underscore JNT joint. And then we're just going to call this last one just the left wrist end joint. So, and we will put that there. That just gives us the orientation that we want for our wrist. Okay, now that we have all of these, you will kind of notice that we have the z-axis going up here, but over here the z-axis is going down. So with the y-axis over there. So, and then same here. So it's just going to create a couple minor issues. So what we can do is we can mess with those local rotation axes to get everything in the same line. So they're all oriented down the joint. So the rotate X is functioning as it's supposed to. But we're going to have some weird variation with the rotates on our other axes and our translation. which is going to give us some undesired results. So rather than deal with that, what we're going to do is we're going to view those local rotation axes. So we're going to again go to display and transform display. We're going to turn on our local rotation axes. There it is. Okay. And then we're going to go and we're going to hit F8 to get to component mode so that we can select that. And go to wireframe. And oh, let's just make sure we've got local rotation axis selected. There we go. And then we need to switch to object mode so that we can rotate it. One thing over here in your tools for your tool, for your current selected tool, which is our rotate tool. If we click on that, there's a tab here. It comes up with all the things that are on here. We want to turn on our step snap. Okay, so for our rotation tool, this is going to allow us to snap things, and I usually do 15 degrees. So 15, 30, 45, it will get us all the degrees that we want. If we turn that on, then it will rotate in 15-degree increments. So if we want our translate Y to be up, we can just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times around. Here we go. And now we have our rotate Y. Our Y-axis is going up. And then we're going to come down to the next joint, hit F8. Again, we still have local rotation axes turned on. And now we can click on that. And we're going to rotate this the other way. Go to make sure that our Y is going up. And we'll do the same thing with our last joint. Hit F8. For our wrist, we're going to select the local rotation axes, and we're going to rotate this 90 degrees. So when we rotate local rotation axes, you want to make sure you are really only doing it on this axis. That way, whatever you have oriented down the bone is going to remain the same. So we're not messing with our X or anything else. That's going to continue to rotate appropriately. We'll hit F8. Not worried about this end joint. It was just to give us orientation for our wrist joint. Okay. So now that we have that, all of these local rotation axes are going to be the same. We'll go ahead and turn this one off by going to display, transform display, local rotation axes, and we're going to turn that off. Okay. And we should be all set. So now our rotate Y is this way, with our rotate X being down, or rotate Z being down. We also have a rotate Y going this way, so we might change that as well. And you can see the difference here where Y is going back and forth. So yeah, so we need to change this rotation axis as well. Hit F8 and select this one, and we're going to rotate that up 90 degrees. Oop, I went too far. There we go. Okay. Now, all of our rotations are going to be the same all the way down our joint chain, which is great for consistency. We've got these named. Now we need to add in these other joints for our thumb and all middle of our fingers. So there's a few ways that we can do this. It is pretty tricky because all of these are going to be at a different angle. So we can go to our side orthographic view. Actually, let's go to our front. Sorry. Come up here up front. We'll hit 4 to get to wireframe mode. And then we have all these fingers, and we can try placing them that way and see what we get. But there's a couple different tricks that we can do that will help us get a little bit more accurate with everything that we're doing. So if we go to our joint tool, one of the things that we can do is we can actually vert snap our joints to an edge loop down a finger. And we can say, if we hold down V, we can go from maybe right about here. We're going to come right here. And we're going to hold V to snap a joint there. And then we can come down and we can follow that same edge loop. We want to go to this third one and hold V. And then the same thing for the tip. Hold V. And then we're going to add one more at the end, at the top of the finger. And then we'll hit enter. Okay. So this gives us some joints that are oriented. You can see kind of how they're oriented right now. So if we rotate it down, it comes in quite a bit. So we will probably change that orientation a little bit. And then these ones are all in the same line as that as well. But the placement isn't bad. So we can actually move these down, and we can actually rotate the base of our joint. We need to turn our snapping off for this. So we're going to turn that off with our tools, and then we can get exactly how we want. So with something like this. That works fairly well. But yeah, we have our local rotation axes. You know, we're not oriented very well. You know, the way that this is going to rotate down is like a broken finger. So we don't want that. That is not going to be the ideal thing. So what we're going to do is we can change this. The other option that we can do for creating joints in the fingers is we can actually create some locators, place them about where we want them in the finger. So we would create 1, 2, 3, 4, put them in the finger, and then we convert snap using our V key to those locators, and that will create it basically right in the middle of the finger. So either are viable. There's multiple ways to do it. And you know, it's just something that you're going to have to play with and see what you prefer and what you like. So for right now, let's just fix this joint. So we'll go back up. We're going to hit F8 to go to component mode. We're still selecting our local rotation axes here. And we just need to turn our step snap back on to absolute. And we're going to select this. We're going to make sure that if we hold our E key and left click again to bring up that marking menu, we want to make sure that we're in object mode for our rotations. So with that, we can actually select all of these at the same time and snap them together. So a few times. So that is starting to look a lot better by snapping it a couple times. Okay, and we can kind of see what's going to happen when we bend our finger. If we rotate that down, it's going to give us something a little more in line with what we're wanting. We might be able to rotate it one more time. So let's go back into object mode and select those local rotation axes one more time. And maybe we'll see what that gives us. Rotating it another 15 degrees and just kind of look and see. This looks like maybe it's twisting it too much. So we'll just undo that. I didn't like that. And we'll go with that. We'll hit F8 to get back to object mode and just double check those rotations. Okay. If we were to do it the other way, we can select and create a locator. That's going to create it at world 0. So we're going to find it here. And we can move that up and even hold V and snap it to a point in the finger and hit F to frame it. And then we can just position that where we feel like that joint should go. So we see it kind of poking out right there. We can hold 4 and kind of see where that is. Maybe we want to move it a little further down in that. And then we're just going to go Control D to duplicate that. And then we're going to move that duplicate down the line where the next joint would be. Move that in, move that over, and get that right where we want it. We want it right on that third ring. So right here, right in the center, as best as we can get it. Okay, once we are fairly happy with that, we'll hit Control D again to duplicate it, and we'll just move that down again to this edge loop, and we want it right in the middle again. So there's a lot of back and forth with looking at things in wireframe and looking at back in your regular shaded view mode. So don't worry about going back and forth. Do what it takes to get you to where you want everything to be. Okay. And then we'll hit Control D again, and this time I'm just going to vert snap it. So holding V to an endpoint on the finger. It's kind of right in the middle. Maybe I'll move it up a little. Yeah, that seems pretty good. So now that all this is doing is just creating points that we can snap our, excuse me, that we can snap all of our joints to. So now that I have those, I can select my joint tool again and hold my V key and snap it right to that locator. So there we go, we're right on that locator. Then I can go to the next, hold V, snap it to that locator, go to the next one, snap it to that locator, and then go to the last one and snap it to that locator. Okay. We'll hit Enter to complete it. And now we have joints that are positioned we want. And you'll notice again, we've still got the same issue. This is not uncommon to be facing. We can delete that. We'll delete all of our locators here. So yeah, and you'll notice that, hey, now we still have our joints are oriented down the bone, which is fine, but they are not really at the rotation that we want. So we can go and actually, now that I'm looking at it, I don't like that this joint, that these two joints here where the knuckles are not lining up very well with each other. So this is a case where I'd go in, I'd hit my insert key so that I can just move that one joint up. And I just want to move it up on one axis. It doesn't seem maybe quite in alignment, so I might move it over just a little bit like that. Okay, this is going to mess up our orientation. So we'll hit insert again to get out of the pivot, and we are going to just orient the joint again. So again, that tool is right here on your shelf, or just go to skeleton, orient joints. You can go to the option box, bring up the options. It's going to X, Y, Y, which is totally fine. And then you have this option to orient the children of the selected joints. So that means if you created a bunch of joints and then parented them together, and then you wanted to orient them, this would orient all the joints underneath the one you have selected. So it saves just a little bit of time. So if we click apply, it's going to adjust it just a little bit because we didn't move it a ton, but it's just going to keep us in line. There we go. So now we have this, and this actually put it so that our orientation is pointing straight up, which is a lot closer. We do the same thing with this joint chain if we wanted to, and you'll notice it's kind of done the same thing. So now it's rotating straight down, and actually I like that, so I'm going to leave it. Okay. So we have this. Now that we're pretty happy with this, we can actually just duplicate the whole chain, Control D, and then hit our W key to move it. And we're going to move that over, and we're going to rotate this chain into place, and we're going to move these joints where they need to be for this finger. So right now, we're going to say right here, obviously this is pointing the wrong way. So if we hit E to rotate, we can rotate the whole joint chain over. And I need to come back to my tool settings and turn off step snap. So that's off because I need to like fine tune it. Now, the one thing with joints, they're always going to house this information. There's no way we can get rid of the translate X, Y, and Z. However, we don't want any information on the rotate X, Y, and Z. So what we're going to do is we're going to freeze the transformations. And what that's going to do is it's going to lock out these, set them back to 0 for our rotate X, Y, and Z. But the translate X, Y, and Z, it's just going to stay the same. So in order to do that, we are going to go up to Edit, and we are going to, actually we need to go to Modify, and we're going to come down to Freeze Transformations, and there's an option box that we can click on to show. Right now, it's going to set everything for the translate, rotate, and scale. Okay, we'll preserve normals. We'll leave everything else pretty default. There are going to be times when you don't want to freeze out your translates, or you don't want to freeze out your scales or your rotates. And you can do those selectively. But right now, the default is fine. So we'll click Apply, and you'll notice it has zeroed out our rotation there. Okay. Anytime we rotate a joint, and we're not doing it through the local rotation axes, we're gonna want to make sure that we're freezing these transformations. I like to go up and make a button out of it. That's what this FT is. So you can do that again to put it on your shelf. If you just hit Control Shift and you go to the menu item and then middle mouse click, it'll create a button there. But you can look that up on your own and figure out how to do it. So I like to have that because I use it a lot while I'm rigging. So we're good there. The other thing we need to change is the distance of these other joints. And if I can at all help it, if I move things only on the translate X, I won't have to worry about the orientation of my joint. Okay, as soon as I move this up, it's going to mess with how this joint is oriented because it's no longer going to, if I went like this is still pointing down this way. So it's not oriented down the bone. And ideally, we want things oriented down the bone. But if we change our tool for the move tool, and let's see, the easiest way to change it right now, its axis orientation is object, but we can do parent. And when we're at parent, it's going to be based off of the parent one, which is going to give you truer movement. So we're going to move that back to where it is around that center ring, or right in the center of that. And that looks pretty close there. And then we're going to do the same thing for this joint. We'll move it on X, although that is looking pretty close. Maybe it needs to come forward just a little bit, like that. Okay, moving the joints, not a big deal. Don't worry about freezing transformations. These transforms, they're always going to be there. There's no way to hide them or get rid of them. That's just the nature of joints. Okay, but we have that. Now we can take that joint chain, we'll hit Control D, and we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to move it over. We're going to place that about where it needs to be. Maybe this one will come down a little bit more to get it a little more in the center. And we need to rotate this finger as well just to get to the center. Okay. And maybe we'll come back in just a tiny bit. That. A little tiny rotation. There. Okay. Now we're just going to move these other joints and get them back into position that they need to be in. So we're just going to move on Translate X to get that right in position there. And we'll move this one back and Translate X. Just want to make sure we're nice and centered there. Okay. All right, these are looking pretty good. We need to create the thumb joints. There's going to be 3 joints in the thumb as well. One's right up here. One's going to be right here, and the last one is here. And then we'll add another one that just gets us to that. So we can do the same thing, and we convert snap to these joints, or to these verts. So we'll just hold V to go there. We'll follow that chain down, and we're going to have another one right here, another one right here, and then one right on the tip. Okay. Now we got to move these down into our thumb. So we want that to be right about there. And then we're going to just rotate this to get that tip back into position. There we go. And we're going to freeze our transforms. So again, modify, freeze transformations, and that's going to get rid of our rotation. So we can rotate on joints. We just want to make sure when we're done and we're just in the placement mode, we want to set those back to 0 on rotate X, Y, and Z. Everything that we do in rigging has a stacking effect. So if we have issues or problems with our joints, then we'll have issues and problems with how something deforms, with the controls, with the functionality of our rig, and it can compound as it goes. So we want to make sure that we're really setting these and setting ourselves up for success. So we are going to do that, maybe, and then we need to kind of adjust some of these positions. I think we can move this back just a little. Let's get it right in there. And that's looking pretty good. I think maybe we can move this joint back just a little. And we're looking good. Okay. I'm just going to test out that this rotation, the way that that thumb is going to work, is looking good. And this should rotate. Yeah, I think this will work pretty well. Again, I'm not worried about these end joints. Okay, so now we have all of these wonderful joints. We've got to go through and we've got to name them all. So we'll start here. This is our left underscore thumb knuckle underscore joint. And then this is our left underscore thumb mid joint. And then this is our left thumb tip joint. And then we have our left thumb end joint. Okay. We're not too worried about that end joint. All it's doing is just helping us to orient the tip joint. Okay, and we want to do the same thing. So we're going to call each of these ones the knuckle. So this is the left. We can call it left pointer, left index, whatever you choose. I'm just going to call it left pointer knuckle underscore JNT. We're going to call this one left pointer mid joint and the left pointer tip joint. Okay. And then this is our left pointer end. Left pointer end joint. Okay. And then we're going to say this is our left middle knuckle joint. Left middle mid joint. And our left middle tip joint. And finally, our left middle end joint. Okay, we're going to come to our next one. This is our left ring knuckle. JNT for joint. We'll pick walk down, again, just using our arrow keys to navigate really quickly. And we're going to say this is our left underscore ring mid underscore JNT. And then our left ring tip joint. And then our left ring end joint. Again, none of this is too super hard. It's just tedious, right? Like we're going over this like 15 times for all these joints. But it's imperative that you do it as you go because it's way more tedious when you're having to rename all of your joints all the time. So yeah, just do it as you go. It's painful, but it's the best way. So this is our pinky, left pinky knuckle joint, left pinky mid joint, and left pinky tip joint, and finally our left pinky end joint. Okay, with that we're going to select all of our knuckles and then shift select our wrist, and we're going to parent that. Okay, so now everything is in line. We are good to go. The other thing that we want to add in here is we want a forearm twist joint. Okay, this we're going to use to give us the nice fall off that you have when you're twisting your twisting your wrist. Okay, because when you twist your wrist this way, you actually have two bones coming down, and they are twisting around this joint. And so there's this fall off of the twist that's happening all the way down here. So we are going to add in one more joint in here. And the way that we do that is there's a little add joint tool that's really nice. We're going to just go up to skeleton, and we're going to insert a joint. And the way that this tool works is you're going to click on the joint you want to add one on, and you're going to slide it. Now it automatically locks it. You're just going to click and drag, and it automatically locks it to the orientation that that joint is already on. And this will have the same orientation as the elbow joint. So we just want to go somewhere in the middle of the two joints right here. And it will add that, and we'll just hit Q to select and get out of that tool. But now we've added this extra joint, and we're just going to call this, it's called joint 1 right now. So we're going to rename it our left underscore forearm underscore joint. Okay, and this we're going to use to twist to get this motion instead of using this to twist it. So it's actually a combination of the two. They'll both twist, and that will give us some nice fall off that mimics what happens in reality. Okay, with that, we now have our whole arm set up. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our left clavicle, and we're going to shift select our upper back joint, and we're going to parent that. Okay, now we're just going to mirror. We're going to select our left clavicle joint, and we're going to mirror that across. So here's the button for mirroring. You can also get their skeleton mirror joints. And this is giving us some weird definition. So let's just go up to our skeleton mirror joints option box. We want to make sure we're YZ behavior, click apply, and there we go. We are set. Okay, that sets up most of our joints, and we're just going to add a few more for the face, ears, and then we'll be done with our joints.